Warning. Well, thank you everybody for taking the time to join this evening. This is something that came out of some of the exercises we've been doing the last couple of months that I stole from Mr. Matt KD8TTE on sending us information about your counties and traffic issues and various other things. And some of the feedback we got was that a lot of folks knew how to fill out radiograms and maybe even knew how to send them via WinLink, but didn't know how to transmit them via voice. So I got with Matt and Helen, WC4FSU, our section traffic manager, and asked them if they would be so kind as to do a training session for us. So that's why we pulled this together. So for those that don't know me, my name is Art Timms, W4CPD, and I am the section emergency coordinator for the Northern Florida ARRL section here, and just recently appointed back in December, and having a good time with it so far, and looking to continue furthering our skills and capabilities. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Helen and Matt, and we will go from there. So thank you both very, very much.
All right, Helen, do you want to open? You want me to get things started?
There I go. Tag, you're it. You get started, and then I'll jump in.
All right, fantastic. All right, so thanks everybody for being here. Helen and I got a chance to work together for when the North Florida section was doing some stuff coming up for training, and that a couple of different events that finally led to us being in Orlando for the ARRL National Convention this year, which was a good time. And so a lot of the work that we have done respectively in the North Florida and Ohio sections has been in the national traffic system. And that includes voice nets. So just real super quick recap about the traffic system. A lot of us in ARRIs are accustomed to working in nets where we have every station that is part of an emergency or a disaster is all on the same net. It's all on the same frequency. If there's additional, like a large amount of traffic or something, they may go to side channels, but everybody is still there and everybody can hear each other. So the concept of the traffic system is a different one, where it provides infrastructure in the form of stations that can perform relay services, so that stations that cannot hear one another directly are able to send messages to one another. So, these days we have WinLink as an example of the kind of thing that you have some infrastructure that can relay messages. But of course, you have to know exactly which station you're going to send it to. It has to be WinLink capable. The national traffic system goes back to the earliest days of the ARRL. The American Radio Relay League was created around this concept of being able to relay these messages. The radiogram format is one that has been in use for a long time. The amateur radiogram format is one that is specifically built around the structure that was used for commercial radiograms by the Marconi company, for example. And you can relay these radiograms by voice, by CW, and also digitally. So that's what we're meant to do tonight, is we're going to do a relay of a radiogram. And Helen is going to be a transmitting station, and I will be a receiving station. And so what we'd like to do is I'm going to have my screen is going to be visible. So I will share what it is that I've got going on, and I'm going to be working by typing what's going on. A lot of people in the national traffic system work, we call it by stick, which is to say you're using a pencil and you're writing everything down. A lot of others work by mill, which is to say typing. And so that's what I'm going to be demonstrating this afternoon, which is what I do. I can type much more legibly than I can write, and it also happens to be faster. So that tends to work out for everybody. So I'm going to flip over to the place for where I can record things, and there we go. All right, so I'm going to share my screen.
Hey, bud.
And I think I need ARC to give me permission to do that, and then we'll be set.
All right, give me 1 second.
Did you want me to send the one that you sent to me, or did you want me to create one? Because I have one of each.
Either way, why don't we go with the one that you created from scratch, and we'll see what questions are, and then maybe we can try the other one just as a way to show some interesting variations.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so you should now be seeing my screen where I'm typing. So what I typically do, just so you get an idea of the way that I typically work, is I will usually have like the time in whatever time zone I happen to be working in. I'm in Quebec time right now. I might have the freak that's on here. If I'm on a particular something that I've got going on here, and then I might say, who is the net control operator or whatever is what I'll put up here. And then when it comes down to it, I can just type stuff in, and this is how I log. So when I'm working throughout the course of the day, here we are. So Helen, if you've got traffic you're ready to send, then if you'd like, do you want to show any procedure for operating the net, or do we just want to get straight to the transmission bit?
Yeah, if we could, maybe Helen or Matt, one of you just kind of do the call for traffic, just to give everybody an understanding of how that works.
All right, so how about Helen, if you're net control, then I'll just report in without traffic, and then we'll just take it from there.
Okay, this is WC4FSU net control for the Northern Florida Areas training net. I need the call sign only of any stations with traffic. I need call signs of anybody who wishes to check into the net. Call signs only, I'll come back to you.
This is Kilo Delta 8 Tango Tango Echo.
Kilo Delta 8 Tango. Thank you. Net control does hold one piece of traffic for your station. Please advise when you're ready to copy.
Whiskey Charlie 4 Foxtrot Sierra Uniform. This is Kilo Delta 8 Tango Tango Echo. Ready.
Please copy number 42001, routine WC4FSU 14, Ormond Beach, Florida, April 20. Going to your station, break. Typically, the person transmitting waits for an acknowledgement to make sure that the other person is ready to copy, that the conditions are working out well, that they've copied everything so far. So I'm pausing to let Matt let me know it's time to go ahead.
Ready.
Text follows: spin the top and Alpha November Delta, spin, change, exchange, R2 Tango Whiskey Oscar 2 different calls in square dancing. Break. Signature is Helen, WC4FSU. End.
So right now I'm counting.
I was going to say, what I see Matt doing is counting the check, so that he's double checking to make sure he's got the number of groups that he copied down matches the number that I sent in the top.
And they match. Roger, forward 2001, over.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Just as a tip, when you do check into a net, if you have traffic, typically they will say ask for your call sign only and the fact that you have traffic, and then you pause, because sometimes there's a number of stations who have traffic, and if you all continue to speak, stations end up doubling and nobody hears anything. So listening to your net controls instructions are very important when you're following net procedure. Also, as far as our particular net, our morning net, Florida phone traffic net on 3940 kilohertz every morning at 7 a.m. Some of you know there's a 7 a.m. in the day of Eastern time, and some of you don't. We have a roster, but we handle traffic before the roster. We do net liaisons, handle traffic, and then do a roster, and then ask for any visiting stations that are not on the roster. If you happen to be in a net that's like that, and you're a visitor, not regularly on the roster, and you have traffic, and they call for any station with traffic, believe them. That's what they mean. They want any station with traffic. You do not have to be on the roster to list your traffic during that time frame of a net. So that's one pointer for you. And go ahead, Matt, from here.
Well, I was just going to point out too, real quick, Matt, if I could. You know, the reason Matt's able to do this in a text editor like this is because, you know, we all know that the format of the radiogram is going to be the same. So even though he doesn't have the piece of paper in front of him, he knows that these are the fields that have to be filled in order of the radiogram. So that's how he's able to do this. So if Matt wanted to, he could, on a paper radiogram or on a PDF fillable one, be able to directly type or handwrite this in because the fields are in the correct order.
Yes, exactly. And that is something that that's another training tip or pointer. If you all are reading, transmitting a radiogram from a form, you don't need to read the labels that are on the boxes on the radiogram form. You don't need to transmit those as part of your transmission because they are expected. Like I didn't say any of that, that the preamble is the preamble. It's always the same. Somebody had an additional question about our morning net. The 7 a.m. net, Florida phone traffic net, FPTN, is at 7 a.m. on 3940, 3940 kilohertz daily.
And that's Eastern time, correct, Helen?
Eastern time, right.
Yep, so 6 a.m. Central. Our little central part of the state over here.
And we have a few stations. We have a few stations from that central time zone who managed to make it at 6 a.m. You're right.
Yeah, not me though. and then when we finish this part, we will discuss several of the nets that you can get traffic into. And I think somebody mentioned a point about the speed read. So Helen and Matt are pros at this and can copy quickly. That is one of the other key points, you know, especially if the person on the receiving end is doing it by hand. It is incredibly important to speak slowly to give them time to copy. Matt, could you, and you may have already been wanting to do this, so forgive me if you were, could you pretend for a moment that you had missed a word or two within that block of text?
Yeah, sure thing. So let me get back over to my screen. Let me share this guy again. Where is it? Here it is. Yep. So if I've missed it, let's say the word the first one, for example. And so when I perform that process of when Helen says end, the transmitting station says end, then before I say Roger, I count up the groups. So let's say that we were on HF and we had a dip in the band and I just missed the word. So I can count them up and I see, oh, I've got only 13 groups here. Now, if I don't know what I've missed, there's a procedure for that. But if I know which word I missed, that can happen. Or if I'm not quite sure what it was, then I can respond. Instead of saying Roger, I will use the pro word, say again. And then I can say in text if I need to specify that it's in the text. And I'll say word before. And then I'll say whatever word in the radiogram I need to have filled in there. So in this case, say again, word before the, I spell Tango, Hotel, Echo, over.
And I would say the word is spin, Sierra, Papa, India, November, spin. Over.
And then once I've got it, then I will go count it up again. Everything fits in. And then I will respond, Roger. Once I've said Roger, Helen knows she can record that it has left her station. It's now on my station. It's now my responsibility to move it forward.
Now, what happened the other day during our net was the person transmitting was having trouble hearing the receiver. The receiver missed a portion of it, and he said, "Please repeat everything after the X-ray." Well, the transmitting station forgot there were 2 X-rays in the text of the message. So, or, you get so used to them that they kind of, they're invisible. So he was repeating everything after the second X-ray. Well, the guy receiving did not know there was a first X-ray that he needed to be asking about. And so we ended up having about 3 or 4 exchanges once we realized that it was a different X-ray than the original request. So if you're going to refer to, in this case, it was the only but in that case, maybe if the receiving station had said, please repeat all after dancing X-ray, then they would have known which X-ray they were referring to, and there would have been way less confusion. So you just kind of got to be aware of what your text is and your pro words like that. And I don't know if this is the appropriate time. I saw another question. We'll get to the question about different nets.
Yeah.
There was a procedure called, we had it happen on our net in the last couple of weeks. It's called letter the text. And that's a leftover from a number of years ago. What you end up doing with letter the text is you give the first letter phonetically of each word in the text, so that it takes up way less time because it's just a single letter. And in Matt's case, he would have not said the Sierra, or I would have said a Sierra right off the bat, and he would have gone, wait a minute, that's the word I missed. So he would have known that it would have been the very first word and it started with an S. So in this case, the lettering of the text would be Sierra, Tango, Tango, Alpha, Sierra, and so forth. So that's another option that you have to make sure you've got all the text.
That's really interesting. I've never heard that done on a phone net. We do that in CW all the time, but I've never heard that done in voice. That's so interesting.
Mm-hmm. It's rare, but it can happen, and it clarified what we needed to have happen on that particular net, and it was a great training moment.
Yeah, it's a great procedure. The first time that it was happening to me, I was on a CW net. And of course, I was a new CW operator, so like I don't even know what's going on. I'm scared to death, and I'm just like, ah. And then they start sending me this string of letters, and I don't know how, but somehow I caught on to what was happening. So I was the only one in Ohio that realized that I was about to throw up because I didn't know what I was doing, but it all worked out.
All right, Matt, go ahead, Helen. Sorry.
Art, as far as you want to talk about the other net frequencies later?
Yeah, we can do that at the end. I was going to say, Matt, if you wanted to demonstrate your ICS 213 to a radiogram message, especially because that one does have mixed groups as well, and that's another skill that is good to know when to use phrases like mixed group, number group, etc.
Sure. So you want me to do the origination part, so we showed what the 213 looks like, and then
sure, absolutely.
Okay. All right, good.
That'd be great.
Okay, so for a lot of us also in Aries, we're accustomed to being prepared to send things in the incident command system structure. And of course, the incident command system has several standard forms, one of which the most common that we see is the general message form 213. Now, the thing about the 213 is that it is basically, it's an interoffice memo. So when we're looking at the ICS 213, the question, of course, is going to be, how is it that we are going to show that it gets from one place to another? Well, in a lot of cases, it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference if you are doing something like attaching it to email or whatever. What we see when we're sending it by email is that we just see the 213 as an attachment. What we do not see is all of the stuff that goes into how to get the thing from one place to another. And now, unless you actually look at your email, go to full headers and all that sort of thing, or you look at show the original format, you don't actually see any of that stuff that makes it a message, which is what actually must happen. Software takes care of all that for us. Now, of course, when we are radio operators and we are working for the agency, we need to take something like that, and when we're moving it, we need to move it in a way that's going to work over radio circuits. Now, again, if it's all the stations are talking directly to one another and we can just send an FL Digi message or something like that and have it go in a way that everybody's going to understand, and you can keep track of what you have and have not relayed, that's a reasonable enough thing to do. But the problem is, what happens if you have to send it someplace else? It has to go to another net. It has to go to another state or something like that. So that's what we'll show here. I'm going to give an example of this form here. Here we go. Okay, so now what you should see is an example of an ICS form 213. So we've got an incident name. We have the 2 with the name and the position, of from with the name and position, subject, date, time, and the message. So this is the top half of it. This is the origination part, fields 1 through 7. And of course, 8 through 14 or 15 or whatever in the ICS 213 are a reply portion. So since this is an original message, there's not a reply. These are the only bits that we have. Now, you can see here, we don't have anything about addressing. How does it get to another radio station? How are we going to voice this? I actually have a video that I'm working on that I just happened to be in another state. I'm not going to mention it, but I was there at a time when there was an exercise going on, and they were trying to voice relay these 213 messages, and it was a disaster. And it's just, it's not the operator's fault that there isn't really a good procedure for how to relay these things. And it was a training exercise. So of course, good on them for doing the work of trying it out. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of people, and this is true even within the ARRL structure, a lot of people don't realize that we actually have tried and true methods for doing all of this stuff. Helen and I don't work together on the same nets, but we could be introduced to one another. We get to talk to each other, and we're able to voice relay these messages with high accuracy and high efficiency because we work from a common set of standards. And so what happens is, when we see a 213, we immediately think, oh, everything is different. This is a new form. Well, it's not different. It's still relay of a message. The issue is that when we are originating a radiogram, what we are doing is taking somebody else's thoughts and we are putting them into the format of the radiogram, the format that allows for voice transmission, for CW transmission, and even for digital transmission. The point is that by standardizing the format, we are able to make things work effectively. By having common procedures for how we voice or how we key, we're able to relay effectively. And all of those things about word before, all after, counting things up and having a check of groups and so on, all of those things apply. And the way that we can make that work is by taking this ICS 213 and turning it into the form of a radiogram. And we're not doing anything magic here. I've got a video that talks through this and actually shows it sort of step by step, but we'll skip to sort of what this thing looks like if we take that same ICS 213 and put it into the format of a radiogram. what you will see is that's exactly the same message. Now, the issue is, look down here in the text where we see incident name demonstration 2205. Now, there isn't an incident name field in the radiogram, but there is such a thing in the ICS 213, which hopefully you're looking at again now. And so in order for us to be able to make all of this stuff work, we can put all of this stuff in the right place. We could say, this is the incident name. And so we put that in the text. Now there's a 2 in here. It has to go somewhere. Of course, it has to go somewhere. Fine. Well, the radiogram also has a 2. And so we can put that right in here. Now, as part of our incident action plan or our signal operating instructions or whatever it is that we're using to govern these circuits, we may have information that Mr. Thayer, the area commander, is at the Ohio EMA, and that radio station is W8SGT. And that means that we can take that information that was included in that ICS 213 that says where it's going to Mr. Thayer, and he's the area commander. We can add to it. We're not changing it. We're not taking anything away, but we add to it the necessary information for it to be able to be relayed on a radio circuit. Because as soon as we see Ohio EMA, we automatically know that, if you're in the North Florida section, Texas, Western Texas, if you're in the Idaho section, it doesn't matter. Everybody knows by virtue of the traffic system that it has to go to the Ohio section. The Ohio section is part of the 8th region. The 8th region is part of the eastern area. And so these things can be routed because we already have all of these circuits defined. And once it's, that's why we've added that kind of information. Again, going back to the ICS 213, we're able to see, okay, here's from whom the message has originated. Well, we also have the same thing in the radiogram. That's going to be in what we call the signature of the radiogram. And so that thing says from in the ICS 213, it shows up right here in the signature portion of the radiogram. And then the text itself, as I pointed out, anything that we had that was necessary to add, like this incident name and the message itself, we can put into the text, which is, of course, what we have done here. Incident name, demonstration 2205, X-ray. X-ray is how we say it's a break in thought. It's like a stop. Subject is another example of a field that exists in the 213 specifically. And we can have the radiogram carry it simply by saying subject status X-ray. Now we go on to estimated, initial India, dash, figures 7-1, and so on. And that includes the entirety of that message, the ICS 213 text, and it has been written in such a way that it's easy to voice. And when we're looking at something like this, oh, that might be difficult to voice. Are we going to get it exactly right? Are we going to have the dashes in the same place? Are we going to have all of the figures the right way? The point of the procedures that we're using and that we train in the national traffic system is to make sure that when a message is received, it is the same message that was sent, word for word and letter for letter. And so all of the stuff that we have in here, where there is a direct translation, a place for it on the radiogram, we'll put it in there. But anything that's not directly in there, we can put it as part of the text. And then this can be voiced, and it can have the appropriate instructions, like the precedence. The idea of precedence is something that we have in radio that we don't necessarily have when we're talking about a naked 213. Brett, NH2KW has a question. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks, man. I got to say, you guys are doing a great job with this presentation. I'm really liking how it's flowing. My question here is, we're transposing an ICS form to a radiogram, and my I'm trying to think about who's the recipient. ICS is going to go through, from one EOC to another, or those official channels. And I'm going back to my military training. If we're calling in a 9 line, for example, or a
Yep.
6, and that's what we call in, and then I'll let the radio know I've got a 9 line, and then I'm calling those one by one, and they know that that's what they're receiving. And in my mind, I would think that if I'm calling another EOC with a 213, I'm going to call them, or a 21, whatever the form. This is what I'm sending to you, and that's what they're going to receive. Can you talk about why that wouldn't be the preferred procedure, please?
Yeah, it's a great question. So before, you'll recall that I said something about if you've got two that are able to talk directly to one another, then there isn't any reason for there to be something that's intermediary. On the other hand, if you've got to send something across distance, so think about one EOC to another, but we've got an X flare, we got R3 radio blackout. So we're not able to talk over the normal circuit. The only way that we're going to get something to work is by relaying. We're not going to have the two talking directly. Or the alternate way around is that we have to send over a long distance and there isn't any direct circuit between the two. In those cases, the question is going to be, what is the circuit that you're moving the message over? So we'll go back to the military example. If you're calling in a 9 line, we know what a 9 line is. That's a medevac. We always know that's what it is. And if you might actually have a designated frequency, a designated circuit for a 9 line. You're going to talk to somebody at least who's doing medical dispatch. So they're going to start spinning choppers up even while you get to line 4. They're already lifting off, and now you're picking up 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That will then be relayed to the medevac crew as they're getting out there. But you can't have that kind of urgency for all kinds of messages, because if you do, of course, you'll clog up the circuit. So that's a typical example of the 9 line, why it has a specific frequency or channel that you go to call that in. Now, if you've got a regular message in the military, radiogram is a 16 line. And in those kinds of messages, you're probably going to be moving those over different circuits. And so exactly the same thing applies here. If you have in a particular incident a circuit over which you can transmit 213s, you've got a procedure for it, and you're going to voice it, or you're going to send it by CW, or you're going to use FL message and just blast it to each other digitally, then that's fine. What this does by putting it into the radiogram simply formats it for transmission over an NTS circuit, which then gives you the option, if you don't have the direct circuit that you need, you can inject it into a system that does have a means to relay it so that it can arrive at the ultimate location. That's a great question. Thank you. Does that answer? Cool. Hopefully everybody followed that.
Yeah. Matt, another common one that we get is, can you send a radiogram with more than the number of blocks that you have on a radiogram form?
Yes, absolutely. So the 25 group maximum is a myth. The actual the idea behind 25 is that, number one, it tries to keep it to a size that is workable. If you have a 7,000 group radiogram, it might take 12 hours to transmit. The operators are going to wear out. And in fact, it's probably not what you want to do. On the other hand, if you've got 33 words or 50 words or 62 words, or you're in an emergency situation, or you're managing it for an EOC, there's absolutely no reason why you cannot do that. So the 25 group limit is not a hard limit. It's just a recommendation from the league for routine message purposes. So for training purposes, birthday greetings, that kind of thing, you want to keep them brief. And then the 25 groups on the radiogram form is just a way to keep it so that it's workable. But you absolutely can put more groups than that. And I do that in training exercises and whatnot, we do that pretty routinely.
Very good. So yeah, Matt, if you want to do a sample transmission of this radiogram, I think that would give a great example of how to read the various groups of messages. Or
actually,
text,
I saw there's another chat message in here I want to address. So why not use a mixed group for roads like I-71 US 35? This is also a good question. So let's go back to the 213 version of this and take a look at what I was, I as the radio operator, what somebody handed me. So they handed me this I-71. Now, my objective as a radio operator is I want for the receiving station, when the emergency manager at the remote site, they're not going to get a radiogram. The radio operator at the receiving station is going to get a radiogram. But the emergency manager at the receiving site, that RU Thayer, the area commander, that person is going to get a 213. And the way that we made that work was by going into our radiogram. We used this feature called an op note. The op note, this is a note to the operator connected to this recipient, the addressee. It tells that operator making the delivery to deliver this as ICS 213. So just as I went through the process of encapsulating the ICS 213 in this radiogram format, the delivering radio operator is going to take that radiogram and decapsulate it to turn it back into the ICS 213. Now, because the originator, this I am here incident commander, put dashes in here, I, as the originating radio operator, I put in the necessary structure so that it would be written I-71. You might say, well, it doesn't make any difference. I-71, I-71 makes no difference. It's an aesthetic thing. Well, it's not my message. If I'm the radio operator and it's from I am here, it's I am here's message. It's not the radio operator's message. And so that's the reason that I'm going to make that match. Now, why I don't make the dash figure or the dash character I-71 as a mixed group is because dash is going to be voiced. It's made as a group by itself. It's transmitted in CW with the letters DASH. And that is just a standard because to perform a dash, it actually sounds a lot like a break. And so the standard for NTS is to take things like periods at the end of a sentence, turn those into a stop with the X-ray character all by itself. Dash becomes the word dash. Comma becomes the word comma. And all of that is being used to ensure that there is no confusion, that the recipient understands exactly what it is that they're supposed to have in front of them. So when it comes time to turning it back into the 213, it will match exactly again, word for word, letter for letter. If we had to think all of this stuff through and we created it now in 2022, we'd probably make some different decisions. But a lot of these are dealing with, backward compatibility, and our backward compatibility in this case goes back decades. So that's why we do have some of the standards that we do. Another question, how would you voice reopening? So transmitting, initial India dash, I spell Delta Alpha Sierra Hotel, figures 7-1 reopening. figures 1300. If there's a question about reopening, I think that the conditions are bad, maybe the receiving station won't understand it, then I can say reopening, I spell Romeo, Echo, Oscar, Papa, Echo, November, India, November, Golf, figures 1300. That would be the I spell is the pro word to introduce spelling. Oh, re-dash opening as the word, including the dash. Oh, okay. So, so the question was actually if reopening had a dash in it. Yeah, if reopening had dash in it, we would actually create, it would become 3 groups. RE dash opening, it would be 3 groups. That would be unfortunate, but worse things have happened.
That is something. Am I transmitting?
You are. You cut in and out.
Okay, I wasn't sure whether the space bar was working. That is one thing about the way Matt just did the phonetics. I'm hearing a lot of people these days give 2 words and then do the phonetics for both words. The most proper, best practices way is to give the word, phonetically spell it, give the next word, phonetically spell it. Do them separately, rather than this other way around.
Yeah, like if you spell the 2 words together, then it's like, is it 2 words or 1 word? Or, yeah, that, yes.
It's happening a bunch with names. They'll say, Arc Tim's, Alpha Romeo Charlie, and go on from there. So yeah.
Yeah, good rule of thumb for this is always assume that the receiving station is confused. And so if you just assume that they're confused, then it helps you to avoid stacking things up that they have to think about. And at the same time, if you are the receiving station, just assume that you're going to be confused. And what I always tell people is when you are copying a message, don't think, just write exactly what's coming. Don't worry about if it makes any sense, because after the transmission finishes, then you can look at it. Then you can count your groups. Then you can see, does this thing make sense? Then you can ask questions. But if you try to figure it out as you're going, then what ends up happening is A, you've got confused, B, you don't know what's going on anyway, and C, you've also lost the entire rest of the message. So rather than give yourself 3 problems, just stick with 2.
And I saw another thing on the chat. No, I'm not recommending that you phonetically spell every word in every text. I'm just saying if you find it necessary to phonetically spell a word that you think might be confusing, then do it immediately. Give the word, give it phonetically, and then I typically repeat the word again. I think you heard me do it earlier in my first message. I said 2, Tango Whiskey Oscar, 2. And the reason we do simple little words like and 2 is because with HF, especially over HF, the conditions and static and everything, those words sound a lot alike. Past tense words, I got one the other day that had the word loved, L-O-V-E-D in it, but L-O-V-E and L-O-V-E-D sound similar. So you can add you could do it phonetically, Lima, Oscar, Victor, Echo, Delta, or I just said past tense, and that let the receiver know that they needed to add the D on the end of the word.
We hear the entire message spoken. Sure. So do you want me, Helen, do you want to voice the radiogram to me and have me copy it so that everybody can hear the whole thing voiced?
Okay. Yeah. From the beginning.
Yeah. Let me flip over to where I'm copying text, and I'll give you a call. Oops. Okay, Whiskey Charlie 4, Foxtrot Sierra Uniform. This is Kilo Delta 8 Tango Tango Echo. Ready.
Please copy. Now I had to change screens. Are you hearing me?
I am.
Okay. Please copy number 4, priority. Hotel X-ray Bravo 1. Kilo Delta 8 Tango Tango Echo. 25. Jeffersonville I spelled Juliet Echo Foxtrot Foxtrot Echo Romeo Sierra Oscar November Victor India Lima Lima Echo Jeffersonville, Ohio 1201. Initials Echo Sierra Tango. January, figures 29er. Going to Ohio, Echo Mike Alpha, amateur call, Whiskey 8, Sierra Golf Tango. Initial Romeo, initial uniform, Thayer. I spell Tango Hotel Alpha Yankee Echo Romeo Thayer. Area commander. Op note, deliver as ICS figures 213. Break.
Okay.
Text follows. Incident name demonstration figures 2205. X-ray. Subject status X-ray. Estimated initial India dash figures 71. Reopening. I spelled Romeo Echo Oscar Papa Echo November India November Golf. Reopening figures 1300. X-ray.
Hi, Doc.
Next. Was there a break? Next, continuing text. Next, priorities. I spell Papa Romeo India, Oscar Romeo, India Tango, India Echo Sierra. Priorities are Ohio dash figures 435. Then initials uniform Sierra dash
I
figures
think it's
3
probably winding down pretty soon.
break. Signature initial India, initial Mike, last name Hotel Echo Romeo. I say again, Hotel Echo Echo Romeo Echo. Here, incident commander in.
Say again in text, word after US dash.
Figures 3-5 over.
Roger, forward. Thank you, KD8TTE. All right, cool. So something interesting happened here. So a couple of things that are probably worth pointing out is you'll notice that when Helen's voicing, she's saying things like January, but I always write JAN. If she said January 9er, I would not have put a 0 in there. There are some standards for this. And the same thing, Helen would actually write exactly as I have written here. And that's part of the standard that we have for how things are being transmitted. And I can see there's the op notes to deliver it as the ICS 213. So in fact, that's what I would do. I would take this ICS 2, or take this, turn it into an ICS 213, and then I would deliver it. And let me see.
And as a receiver, incident name demonstration, I would probably, because I do it by hand, I don't use a computer. I would probably write the word demo myself so that I make sure I stay up with the message. And then later on, I would go out, make a mental note to myself, or finish filling out the whole word later when I convert it. So, even though the other person says demonstration, if you feel you can make your own notes to make it easier on yourself, feel free to do that.
Yeah, the big thing is always to make sure that you've got the procedure that's going to work for you. So, the procedure that we use for working with one another has to be standard so that we understand what we're, voicing to one another. But what procedure you're using on your own station is the kind of thing that you do have some flexibility about. Just whatever you're doing, make sure that you're consistent and make sure that you're not introducing a situation where your shortcut introduces a problem because you forgot to go back, you forgot to make the change, or you just didn't have that, you just didn't have that happening for whatever reason. As you gain experience in operation, you'll sort of learn what things work for you, and you'll get some pretty interesting tricks along the way. I'm going to take flip over to now, because I've got an instruction, an op note to turn this into an ICS 213. This is what the receiving area commander might get. It's an ICS 213. I've taken the radiogram and put all the pieces into the right place. And now I have done things like turned those X-rays back into periods. I've set the whole thing in here. You'll notice it's in all caps. Now, I personally put it in all caps when I'm getting it over a circuit that's not case sensitive, because I want for the recipient, the addressee, to have a hint that I can't tell the difference between a lowercase k and a capital K. If we're using abbreviations and scientific stuff, that can make a difference. Calorie with a C is very different from calorie with a capital C, right? In practice, you're probably going to be spelling things out like megahertz or whatever if you run into that kind of potential situation. But because it comes through in a case insensitive circuit, I deliver it in case insensitive format. You'll also notice that I have at the top of the ICS 213 the additional information that was provided as part of the routing of the message. Now, maybe an agency doesn't want to see that. Maybe they do. This is why it's important to practice with your agency, to talk with them and let them know what this is. This is just the same as having headers in your email message. It's going to tell you where it came from. It's going to have some specifics in here. This handling instructions Bravo 1, that's very important information. Handling instructions Bravo 1 means that this message is to be delivered to the addressee within 1 hour of this time. If that doesn't get delivered within 1 hour, that message is to be canceled and returned back to the sender and said, sorry, this message didn't make it. It's a bounce because it didn't make it in time. So that's why I want to include a lot of this information, because we want to include all the details about what was going on here. And you'll also notice where I make a note where I received it. I received this from this station at this time on this date. Again, it's like email with the headers that show received by, received from, by, received from, by. The other thing about those bits that I've put on here, they are not inside of here. It's not going to be confused as part of the message. I've written it up at the top outside of these boxes on purpose so that there's no chance of it being confused with being part of the message. Okay.
Rosemary had a question about how you indicate it's been through a couple of people, or if necessary. From the NTS standpoint, there's no need. I don't know about from the ICS 213 standpoint. Is there a chain of command business that needs to be noted?
No, in fact, this business of transmission there is no concept of that in the ICS 213, which is actually a significant weakness for it. There is another format, or there's another form in the ICS structure that is the it's called the it's the activity log, And the activity log would be where a radio operator would record things like the transmission of a message or the receipt of a message. But those are not generally very well kept. And it's not included as part of the message itself. So you wind up having to take an activity log and marry it to the messages that you have to try and make it make sense. In the radiogram, we do have a place where we actually record that kind of information. So the annotation that includes that kind of stuff, we put it, as Helen was pointing out, in NTS, it doesn't matter because you don't need to see the whole path. You need only to know this message got to my station how. Either I created it here or I received it. If I received it, where did it come from? Well, if I have to know something about what happened with this message, then what I will do is I will go back to W8OMR and I will say, hey, that message 4, the KD8TTE number 4 that I received from you at 12:17 Eastern time on the 29th of January, where did you get that message? And then they will be able to see their copy of this message and they'll see the same thing. They'll say, oh, it was received from KD8TTE. And that's how we'll trace it back, is by going to each of the relays, because they will have the records of those as part of the radiogram message itself.
Yeah, there's also the 309 form that some folks use. It is technically not an official quote unquote ICS form, but I know that there are some areas groups that do use that as a logging mechanism for the messages too. And I know we're running short on time here. We were trying to keep this around an hour. So before I open it up for questions, we could go on for probably at least another hour on this. I'll give a shameless plug to Matt. He has got a fantastic YouTube channel out there that I frequent myself, and the link is on our section website, ARRL-NFL.org. That's Alpha Romeo Lima November Fox Lima.org. It's under the monthly radiogram challenge section. But Matt has got several bite-sized chunk videos that dive into various topics of being able to dive in more to the messaging world. Before I turn over to Helen to talk about some of the various nets that you can get traffic on, anyone have any additional questions? And then Helen, if you'll, after that, let us know where we can get traffic voiced into the NTS.
W4BCM.
Go ahead, sir.
Question, some of us don't have 80 meter capability, and it seems like all the nets are on 80 meters. Is there a mechanism to get stuff into the NTS on 40 or 20?
I know about Northern Florida stuff. So our two main traffic, these are statewide Florida nets, actually. The two main ones are on 80 meters on 3940 at 7 a.m. and at 6 p.m. The 7 a.m. one is Florida Phone Traffic Net. The evening one is the Tropical Fast Net. They do not have a roster. They just, whoever is there is there. Other than that, I don't know traffic nets that are on 40 or 20. You have local options. Volusia County Traffic Net is one. Seminole County has a traffic net. There are others. Eagle Net in the West Central Florida section is a traffic net. Roy runs one over in the Panhandle. I get a monthly report. So there's a number of training nets on 2 meters, I guess. I don't know, or any of them on 440. But anyway, there's local ones. So what county are you in?
Well, we're in Okaloosa.
Okaloosa, okay. Somebody along the Okaloosa County line area over there want to let you know about a traffic net?
Yes, I know the GCVTN technically calls for it, so that's one. Our Santa Rosa County Aries net, it's one county over, does call for traffic as well. But yeah, Mike, that's probably the GCVTN net is probably your best bet. And we may want to get with them if that's something we want to do on a regular basis, and ensure the net controls know what to do with it once they've gotten it.
Yeah,
they do call for traffic.
And there is a note here about the 40 meter frequency. The hit and bounce net is a CW traffic net on 7.112. So there is a 40 meter one, 7.112. I don't know the times or anything, but it is CW only.
Hit and bounce is 8:30 Eastern, and there is a 7:30 Eastern hit and bounce slow net. The slow net runs at about 12 to 15 words a minute. Hit and bounce net runs a bit faster. It's an independent net. It covers roughly the eastern half of the United States. The nets that are not independent but are part of the national traffic system are part of a very specific structure. And there are nets that operate on 20 and 40, but those are meant to be long distance, like between sections or between areas which make up multiple sections and go into what's called regions. So yeah, generally speaking, your best bet is stay as local as you possibly can, unless you are representing that local net up to a higher net. Alternatively, you can go to an independent net like Hit and Bounce. And Hit and Bounce is they're a great group.
Thank you.
Yeah, and two more options on the 80-meter front. You have the Northern Florida Aries net that is on 3950 in the mornings at 8 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Eastern. And then you have the Florida phone net that is in the evenings at 6:30 p.m. Central, 7:30 Eastern as well. Those are section nets that you can also bounce traffic into. Anyone else have any additional questions?
There's a mention of shares. Yes, there is shares. So if you're an Auxcom operator, and you are at that point able to work with any radio service that the agency has, then you may be doing some other stuff. Shares does have, they operate completely outside of amateur spectrum. It's probably a scope beyond. Okay, yeah. So talking about 60 meters. Ohio has an Auxcom program that we're getting up and running. Actually, my current video of the week covers 60 meters, where we talk about our Black Swan net, where we're actually doing stuff that's well beyond this. We're basically taking high-speed NTS and ARRL operators, giving them training on how to do government procedures, so that we and that's basically where we get into shares and interoperability between shares and amateur stations on 60 meters. That's a good time. The NTS ARRL stuff is a really good place to start, though. You could start drinking from the fire hose pretty easily.
Absolutely. And so somebody had mentioned earlier too, WinLink is certainly an option to get traffic into the NTS. The forms for that are built into the WinLink software, and there are region level liaison stations that will take that traffic. That is typically how I will pass my traffic a lot of the times, because it's the easiest and quickest way for me. But one of the reasons that we wanted to do these voice exercises that we've done for the last 2 months is to be able to provide an opportunity for folks to practice sending voice. You may not always have a WinLink sitting in front of you to be able to send a message. So it was really trying to encourage folks to, they hadn't ever sent one via voice, to do so. But if you hadn't in a while, then also to be able to practice sending those messages via voice, because it is something, if you don't do it very often, you won't be able to do it. Wendell asked, do the Florida nets monitor FL Digi? I am not aware of that as of yet, unless you are, Helen.
Not that I'm aware of. I know we've been doing some experiments like with the JS8, but that's all I'm aware of.
Yep, yeah, we are working on some JS8 stuff, and that information forthcoming. I will also let you know we are working on some training videos and additional documentation for the WinLink side as well. So we are working on getting things documented, and we'll be doing more of these training sessions if folks like them. We can certainly do them more often, and good turnout tonight. I think at the highest point we had 40 folks. So that's a great turnout for a Wednesday night training session. So unless anybody has any additional questions, I want to personally again thank Matt and Helen for taking the time this evening to do this training for us. It has been a fantastic format, and I greatly appreciate your assistance in doing this. The training video will be available on the section website here once I get back home and get it edited over so we can get it posted. But if nobody has any other questions, we thank you again for taking the time.
Brett's got one.
Thank you.
Yeah, looking for your email, Matt. You're the one doing the Black Swan exercises, right?
Correct.
So I met you and I lost your card. Would you mind putting your email up there?
Sure, I'll stick it in the chat there. It's kd8tte@pm.me.
And again, be sure to check out Matt's YouTube channel. Matt's one of my favorite YouTubers for this type of stuff. He does a fantastic job and puts them in little bite-sized chunks so you can digest at will.
Thank you.
All right, 7-3, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time this evening.
Good night.
Good night.